Welcome in, builders. This week we're taking a look at middle-age Phlegra, Deformed Giants. This is a successor nation to Mekone. We lost our war against the gods, to our surprise, and we have been punished for it. So this is a nation that has some pretty good strengths still, but some pretty distinct weaknesses at the same time. Let's check them out. Phlegra is a kingdom of giants who have enslaved the much more numerous human population. The Gigantes of Phlegra are the descendants of the Gigantes of Mekone, who made war upon the gods of men. Punished for their sins, the descendants of Mekone no longer appear as proud hoplites in gleaming armor. Instead, they are deformed and cursed with a violent temper. Since the fall of Mekone, the Gigantes resent pretending gods and religious faiths, and only the human population of the kingdom devote themselves to the awakening god. Phlegra is also home to the sheep-herding Cyclopses, another tribe of giants. Like their predecessors, the Gigantes of Phlegra have enslaved their neighbors and formed a kingdom under the rule of their tyrants. Unscrupulous human mages had developed ways to serve the tyrants by dominating less fortunate, magically adept humans. Now, human taskmasters and oppressors cause more fear in the populate than the tyrants themselves. For national features, we have human troops, mostly slaves. We have some Cyclops, and we have the Gigantes in our new, angrier form. For military, we have few Gigante warriors. Mostly, we use human slaves, and we have no sacred troops. Magic, we have very strong fire, pretty strong earth, and we have decently good water and also air that's not listed here, a little bit of death and a little bit of nature. We have arcane slave communions, which is kind of a cool mechanic, and we have Cyclop smiths. Our priests are weak and few. We only have a priest level 1. Our domain increases unrest, not particularly helpful to us. We struggle with unrest quite a bit. Our scales and blesses give us a turmoil limit of +1, and we build giant forts. So we do go all the way up to giant castles, but they are expensive. For sites, we have the burning fields. This increases our recruitment limit of +2. That is going to be to these Gigante warriors. They have our cap-only leader here, the Phlegran tyrant. We have fire, an earth, and a death. We also have the Fortress of the Cyclops, which gives us another fire and another earth, and allows us to recruit the Elder Cyclops. So 2 fire, 2 earth, and a death. Not the worst gems, especially for someone who has a nice crafter. Would have been nice to see a little bit of air income here, but we do not have that. Units and sacreds. Oops, we have no sacreds because the gods do not like us. For units, we have our human slaves, we have some Cyclops, and then we have our Gigante. For our human slaves, we have a Helot Archer. Now, I've started to soften a little bit on my short bows in middle age. Short bows can still have a place in armies. They are still not great, but against lightly armored crossbow troops, they actually will win most of those duels, and doubly so when you are this bloody cheap. In addition, there's still other indies and whatnot that are relatively unarmored, so I've lessened my dislike of short bows a little bit. They're still not the best, though. This one is great. Why is this one great? Because it costs you 8 gold, 6 resources, and 4 recruitment points. They are slaves, so if we look at their morale, it's only 6. This is going to be a major downside and theme amongst our human troops. Luckily, we do have some pretty good taskmasters to try to up that morale. The big bonus here really is 3 gold a year. 3 gold a year of upkeep. So in an entire year, if somehow this guy survives, he will have cost us 11 gold. That is so dirt cheap. Comes in with a standard dagger, standard short bow, is wearing a leather cuirass, and does have an iron helmet. That's probably about as good as you're going to get for a cheap short bow for middle age. Going up in body armor probably won't save you, and it would just up his resource cost. So this is probably about the right set. These guys, I think they're okay, and especially once you can buff their strength, that would be a major help to them. And of course, flaming arrows is a big option for us. We can easily cast that. In addition, we do have a little bit of air access, so with a little bit of work, we could get like a wind guide up or something. So these are actually okay. They're okay. Another thing that we have a problem with is actually combat width, and so having some range options to allow us to project damage that is not on the melee line can be kind of useful. Doubly so if we can get those flaming arrows. Next up, we have the Healot Warrior. These can be recruited outside of forts as well, which is a nice bonus. Again, Slave Troop, 8 gold, 10 resources, 4 recruitment points, has a morale 7 and 3 gold upkeep per year. Equipped with an axe, a javelin, 2 actually, ring milk heroes, an iron cap, and a shield. So 9 protection, it's on the low side, but for a slave type troop, that's fine. Again, 11 gold for an entire year of service if you somehow survive. Dirt cheap. You can flood the world in these guys. And the 7 morale's, I mean, it's not good, right? But we're going to lead them with taskmasters, and if we look for other ways that we can increase their morale, that could be kind of useful. I think these are all right. These are also recruit from anywhere, so we can gather them up from around our forts. That helps a little bit. In addition, we have a capture slave command we can do on our tyrants, so we can generate these guys for free. If we look here, I did 1 turn and I got 10. I think there's some variance here because I swear I've seen more, but I just remembered to do one right now, and I just don't have anyone else in position to really do it at the moment. So I think there's a little bit of variance. If you know the exact equation for capturing slave command, let me know. But either way, you can generate those guys for free just by spending time with one of your tyrants. Is that worth his time? Maybe. It depends. Next up, we have the Healot Soldier. Again, another slave troop. Now, this is kind of our elite human troop. 8 gold, 17 resources, 4 recruitment points. Just like the other guys, all human stats all around. Pretty low morale with the 7, but again, 3 gold upkeep per year. So again, 11 gold if you survive an entire year with one of these guys. And as far as this type of troop goes, these are actually pretty good. A length 4 long spear means you can get repels against most things. And 10 attack, 13 damage. A little unfortunate there, but considering they're slave troops, I don't think we could have expected more. We do have easy access to Earth, so giving them a strength buff would actually help. We have easy access to fire, so giving them the attack morale buff would actually help quite a lot. Plus 2 attack and 2 morale would actually make this a pretty solid troop, although you're probably still going to need strength. The number to hit in middle age, in my opinion, is 16 protection to make sure you can fight basically most things in line combat, and we're below that here. But with a strength buff, we could get up to that. We're using a scale mail halberd, an iron cap, and a hoplon. Hoplons are great shields, so pretty darn good here for a line troop. No formation fight or anything, but that's fine. These guys would make a nice solid front line if you did want to recruit them. The one downside here being 17 resources is a smidgen on the higher side, especially considering if you're going to actually go with production scales or not. We tend to be a little tight, in my opinion, on what we can make for gods. But overall, I like this guy. I would use him if I'm going to recruit troops and I can afford it. I think this is decent. Maybe I could get these in forts and then get the cheaper warriors outside of the forts and just kind of combine the two up. Overall, okay human troops, surprisingly. Next up, we have the Cyclops Warrior. 35 gold, 3 resources, 7 recruitment points. So a little on the pricey side here. We could get, geez, almost 5 of our human troops for one of these guys. However, it is a Cyclops. He is size 6, 42 HP, 22 strength. Pretty nice there. Now the downsides here, he is a glutton. So he's going to eat a ton of food. Look at this. Supply usage 3, and I believe that's not counting this, so that should be 4. I might be wrong on that, but either way, he eats a lot of food. So you could get to the point where your armies are so big, if you're using lots of giants, that you're going to have supply problems. We have ways to mitigate that, though. Unfortunately, we are undisciplined, and so it is hard to hold these guys still. Obviously, we can't, to get them buffed. What would I buff them with? They need a protection spell. They would really like to have a little more natural protection. That would really help them out. If we could get bark skin or anything else on them, they would actually be pretty spooky. 10 attack with a length 3 weapon and 34 damage. You can club some fools with these guys. Little bit of armor, that's kind of whatever. I wish they had a hat on. If you're going up against range fire, these guys will melt, so be aware of that. But an okay troop. One notable thing here is at size 6, we can share a square with a human. So we can also push our way to the front. So this would allow us to have these guys right behind the human line, let the human line take the initial hit, and then these guys step in and do some squishing. Usable. I think you need the right circumstances, though. I wouldn't just get these as line troops. Next up, we have the Cyclops Hurler. Recently, we had a stream as Nabaa, and we had to take out Phlegra. These guys on fort walls are absolute misery to deal with because they actually have enough ammo to squish you. Their problem is they only carry 2 ammunition. And so you throw 1 attack at range 7, probably whiff it. You throw 1 good attack and you get 1 hit, and then you're out of ammo and you switch over to your club. This is another troop. Maybe I've softened a little bit here. I think having a secondary line of these guys behind our Gigante warriors wouldn't be the worst thing ever. We would get those rocks throws out. We'd fill in any spots that happen to vacate. Maybe these guys coming on the sides. You'll have your Gigantes in the middle. You'll have some slave troops on the wings to make sure you don't get wrapped. And then maybe these guys could be mixed in with the slave troops. And then they could throw some rocks and then push the way to the front. And 10 attack with 25 damage is still enough to squish some fools. Main reason I would think about doing that is actually their siege bonus. We're not terrible at sieging or anything, but having a 9.8 siege strength, so let's say we brought 10 of these guys, or maybe 20, 10 on each side or something, we could pop forts really, really, really quickly. And that would be rather nice because I tend to find that it's hard to get lots of armies out as Phlegra, so we don't want to just be sitting with our entire force on a single fort. Again, recently on streams, we had some circumstances where that happened, and it kind of sucks when you have everything put into this one siege, whereas maybe we could pop things and get that moving a little quicker with these guys. So another troop that I've actually softened a little bit on. For our final troop, we have the Gigante Warrior. The Gigante Warrior is a limited recruit, so if we pull back into my game here, in our capital, we have our site, so we can get 4 per month. In other forts, we can only get 2 per month. So we do have to remember that these are limited. So we can't just make some crazy build where we can just recruit 10, 20 of these a turn. That being said, they're pretty decent. They come in, well, they are Gigantes to start with for their chassis, so tons of HP. Look at this. We're getting almost 1 HP per gold. That's pretty good for a big giant troop. 62 HP, 24 strength. That's both really, really nice. They're not super slow or anything. Good map move. They're not very encumbered. That's all great. They come in with with fire resist 5. That might be pertinent to what we want to be casting. Poison resistance. They do require a minimum leader size of 6. So none of our human leaders and a lot of summoned leaders actually are too small to lead these guys around. They only want tall guys, no short kings around here. They have Berserk +2. This is what really is the secret sauce of this troop. These guys are just a pain in the butt to get rid of once they Berserk. And they have enough morale that they're probably not running away before they proc a Berserk. And then that's going to up their protection ever so slightly, and it's going to up their damage a little bit, damage and attack a little bit more. They are big gluttons, though. They are big, big gluttons. Yeah, 5.5 supply use is a lot. That's a lot of supply use. Each one causes unrest 1. Watch out for this. This can sneak up on you, especially in like your capital, because you could be recruiting 4 of these per turn, and then you probably don't leave the turn they're recruited because you're going to build up a couple turns worth. So you may actually end up needing to patrol your capital just from the unrest from these guys, much less any other sources, such as capturing slaves or domain or events. So that's a bit of a pain there. They do come in also with affliction resistance 2. That's a big help, especially for a big guy that doesn't have a helmet on and isn't the highest protection. We're at 15. So I would consider 15, 16 the middle age protection number. So they're fine there. And they're tall enough that most things can't hit their head in melee. Remember, you add the length of your weapon plus the size of your unit is as tall as they can reach. So a human wielding a spear is only length 6. They can't be hit in the head. However, archer fire, range fire, other giant troops, etc. can definitely do that, and that's going to make you very sad. But overall, very strong troop. Again, the limited recruitment kind of really holding them back from being ridiculous. They have that nice length for spear, and they're pretty decent with it. They're hard to buff because they're so large, but these guys would like buffs. I mean, some extra protection. The strength probably not, but extra attack would be fine. Remember, when we berserk, this is going to go up to 13, so we're going to be really good at repelling. If we gave them the fire attack buff from thaumaturgy, we'd be up to 15 attack. That'd be a repelling machine. So another thought there. Maybe that's worthwhile. And we do have other reasons we might want to go up thaumaturgy. Either way, interesting troop, pretty good. Can you imagine how crazy this guy would be if he was sacred? Man, even just throwing a region on here would just blow this guy up. Probably for the best that they are not. Overall, a pretty decent troop lineup. Everyone here has a use. Some of it kind of questionable, some of it kind of circumstantial, but either way, not the worst. Heroes, commanders, and prophet. We have a single hero. This is our Throg Tyrant, a actually very useful hero. Comes in with Fire 1, Air 2, Earth 2, Astral 3, Priest level 3. So highest Astral and good Air and Earth. So we could make some boosters right here from these two. It gives us another Priest level 3, which would be very useful. Otherwise, we only have Priest level 1s. Is a pretty good researcher. However, he comes in as old and pretty darn old. He has Fortune Teller, he has Taskmaster, and he is a Communion Master. Overall, pretty useful. I would say he's most useful for the Astral Magic and the Priest level. If you get him, great. I do think he's pretty usable, but other than that, not too much to say about him. The very old makes me very nervous that he's just going to die immediately. For commanders, we have quite a little spread here, most of which are mages, ironically enough. First up, we have a Cyclops Chieftain. He is a bad leader. Let's just start it off there. 20 leadership. He costs 75 gold, 7 resources, and 1 recruitment point. He's very similar to our Cyclops troops. I think he's using the same club and everything. However, he's a brain boy. He put on an iron cap. Good for you, buddy. He is a glutton, of course, and has Taskmaster +1. Now, that's only going to negate his penalty. Why would I ever get these guys? Well, these are the guys who can help move around your Gigante warriors. Remember, they will not be led by your humans. So, sometimes you just need to move those guys around, and your Cyclops is going to be the guy who has to do it. Now, we have access to Dwarven Hammers pretty easily, and we have access to a Smith in the Cyclops Smith. So I think if you gave these guys just a piece of armor, just to make them a little bit safer, they would already be fine. So I would really, really like to give them a piece of armor. 12 protection makes me very nervous for a large unit. I try to keep them out of combat, but such that it is, they'll probably end up there sooner or later. Next up, we have the Throphimos Commander. This is our human leader. 105 gold, 21 resources, 1 recruitment point. Slightly better than normal human stats. He's pretty well trained. Has Taskmaster +2 with 100 leadership. So he would give you a +3 to your morale. So if we go down here, that would give us a 9. That would give us a 10 and a 10. So that actually makes those troops okay. They're back to at least a baseline. I would sure like to give this guy some items that increase morale for his troops. So we'll be looking at crafting various things. Overall, good troop leader. They're fine. Nothing much to say there. They have good gear on. Hoplite helmets are great. Hoplons are great. He's using our scale mail hallmark. It's fine. He's a perfectly usable human troop if you need to have a human leader with Taskmaster. Next up, we have the Shackled Mage. This is the beginning of some of our interesting things. 95 gold, 1 resource, 2 recruitment points. Human stats, although he's pretty frail. He has good magic resist and very bad morale. He comes in with a random of fire, air, water, or earth. He has a bad inept researcher, so he only does 5 research ability. However, he does 5 for 38, so he is actually efficient in that. I wouldn't make this guy a main research or anything, but at least while you're building some of these up to use, that would be worthwhile. He is an actual slave, and he has Communion Slave. He literally just is in a communion if there is a Communion Master present. This is a really powerful mechanic because that means you don't need to spend round 1 getting into your communion. You could just fire the big spell right away. Now, the downside to these guys, they have no choice whether they're in a communion or not, and you don't have a choice of which of the 4 paths they're going to have. So you have to be really careful that you don't blow these guys' minds up in a communion with, let's say, a guy who's throwing out a bunch of earth spells, but your guys are not earth slaves. You get a huge penalty to fatigue if you are a communion slave to a spell that does not have a path that you have. That's something you have to be careful about. So they're kind of annoyingly finessey to set up those communions, but they're also kind of low effort. I mean, if you don't care and you just have these guys sitting around, I think you could just throw 16 of these guys into a fight with 3 or 4 masters and just brute force it that way. So could be pretty interesting there. I think this also lends us to wanting lots of recruitment centers if we can get there. Next up, we have the Cyclops Shepherd Shaman. Kind of a cool unit. 100 gold, 3 resources, 2 recruitment points. They have giant stats. However, they're not fighters, they're shepherds. Comes in with Nature Magic 1. This is, I believe, our highest nature magic, so you'll probably need at least one of these guys to get out and do a little site searching. They are absolutely terrible researchers, and they're very inefficient. 20 gold per research. They give you a supply bonus. They are gluttons themselves. They're a Beastmaster +2, so they would give a +1 to animals that they are leading, and they can summon allies. We'll look at that in just a second. They're equipped with a quarterstaff, which is a length 4 weapon, and he's pretty good with it. So ironically enough, if we gave this guy a piece of armor, he could give himself bark skin, and I don't know, maybe he could do a little bit of fighting if he had to. Nature 1 is also good enough for a combat path that if I had this guy in combat for whatever reason, he was dragging supply along or leading some animals for me, he could do web, he could do vine arrow. There's various Nature 1 spells that are fine. As for what he summons, when you give him the command to summon allies, you get 2 Great Mouflons. So these are the animals that are used in Pyrene at the moment in Middle Ages as their mount, and will be used by us in Late Age as mounts. It has a headbutt, it is an animal, it is cold resistant, has mountain survival, has supply bonus, and is undisciplined. The supply bonus is, I think, the most interesting thing here. I think having a shaman maybe drag around whatever amount of these you need to handle your food issues is one way you could get around having to craft a lot of nature items, which we're not good at doing. Vaguely interesting. Again, they're undisciplined, unfortunately. I wish we had tight rain. Really unfortunate the shaman doesn't, because if we could tight rain them and give them a protection spell and maybe an attack spell, they're not bad. They're okay. Decent HP, okay strength. They're okay. Overall, it's whatever. I think I'd mainly get these either because they're free or because I need some supply items. Next up, we have the Profamos Priest. This is our only priest. He is a priest level 1. He gets a random path of fire, air, water, and earth. He has 9 research, and he is an adept researcher. So 9 research for 54 gold is a good, efficient researcher. So if you're going for efficiency, these guys are actually pretty decent. They're a Taskmaster +1, so if they had to lead some guys around, at least they're getting +1. So not good enough to probably lead slave troops around, and they're too short to lead giants around, but maybe you need to just move some troops. They're okay at that. You might want a lot of them because they are efficient researchers. Other than that, not too much to say about them. You'll need a few to build some temples. Be aware, we do not have a better priest. So if you start losing the Dominion spreading war, you're in distinct possibility of getting Dom killed. So I think you need to be kind of aggressive getting your temples out early, especially in an AI game where the AI is going to spam temples everywhere. That makes me very nervous. We don't have Blood Sack. We don't have any other mechanic that's going to help us, barring one little thing we'll talk about later. So just be aware of that. Another bonus here is he can build a temple and a lab for you. So one of these guys is a relatively cheap infrastructure builder. I wouldn't mind getting a couple of these out relatively early. Next up, we have the Trophimos Sage. These are an interesting battle mage. 160 gold, 1 resource, 2 recruitment points, human stats. doesn't come in old or anything. Gets a random tied to pathing of 2 fire or 2 air or 2 water or 2 earth. I love mages like this because they're guaranteed to be useful. Fireball, lightning strike, cold bolt. We can earth power or phoenix power up to bigger stuff. Great for buffing things. We could do mist. We could do quickness. We could do fury for the fire buff. We could do protection buffs, strength buffs. Great little mage here. Great little mage. 11 research because he's also an adept researcher. However, 128 gold per year for 11, just under efficient. However, I think once I have my basic research few guys out, maybe the guys who are going to hold an Alquill or whatever, I think I would switch to these guys. They're almost efficient, but they're combat ready. Whereas the other guy, a 1 in any of these things is less useful, especially like water and air and earth. Having a 1 in those is pretty useless. The fire can kind of do something, kind of. So I think I would switch these though, because these can give you a lot of firepower. But what if I want a stronger mage? Well, you're in luck. We have the Thropomos Oppressor. Again, 160 gold, 1 resource, 2 recruitment points. Human stats, he comes in at not old, although he's almost close enough to be old. So you might get a slightly old one if you get unlucky. He comes in with 1 fire, 1 earth, and a random of either air or water. 11 research for 128 again, so not really efficient. He is a Taskmaster +2, so he would be a little bit better to lead things around. Again, I don't really want these guys leading stuff, but they might need to just drag people around. His big claim to fame, though, is Communion Master. So him, along with our Shackled Mages, will be in a communion instantly. Now, as mentioned, casting things that your slaves don't have any paths in is brutal to them. So just know, be prepared for that. It's not going to be as easy to balance as most other communions. That being said, pretty good. Pretty good. You can get right in here. You can scale them up to cast whatever you need to cast just with enough slaves. You could get them. Summon Earth Power will help with the fatigue on the slaves a little bit. Personal Mistform or Air Shield will help protect your slaves. Liquid Body would help protect your slaves from some damage. These guys are pretty usable. Like I said, I find these a little bit on the annoying side because they're really hard to balance and not blow people out. But they have like a lower floor and a higher cap than our sages do. So I think they're pretty interesting. In addition, we do have a national item that can help bring people into communions too. So we could get some, say, nature into our communion, and we could do like an enlarge and a personal regen. That would really help out our slaves. So that is an option that could help this a little bit. I don't think we really can do turbo communions, but that would help at least some. Next up, we have an amazing unit, probably what makes this nation, the Phlegra Tyrant. This is a cap only. He is slow to recruit, 445 gold, 38 resources. He is the Gigante chassis, so he's got the 68 HP, the 26 strength, good stats. He has good morale. He berserks like the little guys do, although he gets even madder about it. He is our best leader at 120, and he has Taskmaster +4. So between the two of those, he's going to be able to lead a lot of troops, and he's going to give them 4 morale. So even our junkie guys will be at 11, or 10 if you have the archers. So very nice there for slave troops. Magic path-wise, he's very strong. This reminds me distinctly of the Dione from early age. I don't think he's as good as a Dione. He doesn't have the second form, but still. He has Fire 3, Earth 2, Death 1, just out of the box, and he can random 110% of Fire, Air, Earth, or Death. Those are amazing pathing. This guy is probably not quite super combatant. Unfortunately, he is not sacred natively, but he's very close. I would put him as a very, very light super combatant, probably more likely a heavy thug. What are you going to do with this guy? Well, lots of things. Lead armies. He's going to buff armies. He's going to do combat magic. He's going to self-buff. He's going to thug. He's going to capture slaves. Another thing we'll look at here in a second. So he's got a lot of work to do. So ideally, once you get past the early game, you'd like your capital to be on permanent just recruiting these guys. They're just so good. I want to talk magic here a little bit while we're on him. Fire Shield, the fire attack and morale buffs are all things he can do. He can summon earth power. He can do all the earth protection stuff, including buffing armor. He can also do strength. He can do temper flesh. If you get an air one, I would strongly consider giving him some air gems, and he can use those to cast personal mist form. That's very spooky. He can do personal flight and fly into the back of the line. If you get a death 2, some death gems would allow you to do soul vortex. A soul vortex guy that is temper fleshed and buffed up is going to be basically invincible against a lot of things. That is a very, very hard unit to deal with. Very, very hard to deal with. They're not good researchers. 13 research, 360 and 56 gold upkeep is pretty rough. They come in with fire resistance 10. Another note, both these guys and the other giants have fire resist, and we have enough fire that we could cast Firestorm. So it might be a consideration that a few of those guys protecting one of these, and he could just Firestorm and burn out an enemy army, especially if they're like human that don't have native fire resist, pretty effectively. Pretty darn effectively. He is Berserk +4, so this protection is going to skyrocket even more. So you'll get lots and lots of buffs off on yourself, and then you'll go Berserk, making that pretty hard. He's a Glutton, Taskmaster, Bad Researcher. He gives Unrest +3. So again, we might need to actually patrol our capital because we're just going to be pumping out the Unrest. He's a Combat Caster, a very rare trait. You don't see this on a ton of units. That means he has a 50% chance of trying to cast a spell in melee, and the chance of being interrupted by damage is halved. And fatigue from armor encumbrance is not doubled like it is for ordinary units. So if we look at his encumbrance, spellcasting encumbrance is just 3. So this is another guy that maybe he runs up and he does like an immolation or something like that. Just a big PBOE fire spell right in somebody's face. Also, I didn't mention, but Phoenix Pyre plus Soul Vortex is nigh invincible with Summon Earth Power. So another great combo here. They come in with Affliction Resistance, and they are Slavers. His equipment is a Golden Spear, so a length 4 magic weapon that he's very good with. So repels should be what you're thinking there. So again, really nice defensively. And he has a Gleaming Cuirass, which is a magic chest piece. I would love to get these guys a helmet just for the safety sake. I think just the Black Steel helmet that is just a construction 1, 5 earth gems would really make these guys feel a lot safer. Once I'm up and running, it would take some finagling, but a Fear helmet from Death Crafting would be really nice on these guys for thugging. Really, really nice on these guys. Other things, Burning Skull helmet for fire boosting could be good. The Skull helmet for boosting death could be good. Lots of options there. I don't think we need tons of other gear. Maybe a helmet and a bracer protection. And then if you temper armors, you'll get a buff to all those pieces. That'll give you a lot more protection than you think it might otherwise do. Can't say enough good things about these guys. Watch that Unrest, though. That can get pretty spicy. Next up, we have the Elder Cyclops. This is our crafter. He is also a cap only. You'll probably need to get a few of these guys. 464 gold, slow to recruit, so they're going to be rather pricey. They come in with Fire 2, Air 1, Earth 2, and a random 110% of Fire, Air, Water, and Earth. They are 17 research for 372. Very inefficient on that, but you're not getting them for the research, really. Fire resistant, 15. They are mountain survival. They are master smith. This means they count as if they are one path higher for the purposes of crafting. And they have a resource bonus of 25. So they just add 25 resources to the province that they're in. If you need more resources, let's say somehow your capital is so bad you can't get a tyrant and 4 gigante warriors, you'll probably want a few cyclops so you can do that. You're mainly going to get these guys for their crafting, however. These guys can easily, if somehow you can't do it on your other guy, make a flaming skull helmet for fire boosting. They can make your dwarven hammers. They can make your earth boots. We're going to need to boost fire and earth for one of our big spells that we would like to do. So that's a spot. Note they don't have a discount on crafting. They are just better at doing it. So they can craft Alquills, although not at any kind of discount. Flying boots, another thing that maybe your tyrants would really like. So you could have flying heavy thugs. Pretty darn spooky there. Beyond that, rings of water breathing, get our guy under water. And if we check him, well, he would struggle a bit because he's not an amphibian. He doesn't have iron gear. He has magic gear. So that wouldn't rust. So against a really, really easy water province, these guys could probably come out ahead. And so you could take that and get yourself started underwater. These guys can't have any death or nature, but maybe it might be worth boosting into one of them. If we boosted nature 1 here, he could craft us rings of regeneration. And there are only 10 nature gems each once we can do it. And obviously a dwarven hammer will make that a little bit cheaper. Our Phlegra tyrants with a ring of regeneration would be regenerating, I think, 7 HP per turn. That would, again, make these guys just absolute terrors. So a strong consideration there for them. Overall, a nice lineup. We are missing a dedicated scout, unfortunately. We have decent spread between cheap mages and expensive mages. A little fragile with the human lineup there, although a lot of them can self-buff themselves. We have some decent leadership that we're really going to need if we want to use the slave troops. We have some giant leaders who we need to move around our Gigante warriors. Overall, an okay lineup. What would I make my profit? It's hard to say here. A Phlegra Tyrant would be a safe choice, and it would lower his very expensive upkeep. As always, though, I don't like doing that because he's not going to spend time using his holy magic. So I usually make the starting Cyclops Chieftain my original profit. I would love to rush out some armor for him so he doesn't die horrifically, but it is what it is. Maybe a Cyclops Elder. Remember, you're going to need to claim thrones, so I think you need a mobile one. The bright side about a Cyclops Chieftain is he does at least have 18 movement, so that's not the worst on that. Yeah, I think it generally, I've always done this. I'm just thinking if there's anyone else I would do. I think I'd stay away from the humans. They're just too squishable. I mean, this guy's okay, 14 protection, but if we got this guy some gear, he's got 47 HP base just to start him off. And he already has a little bit of gear, but we could just replace that with something better. Get him a shield and like a length 3 spear. We're getting somewhere. We're getting somewhere with him. Pretty decent. National items and spells. For national items, we have 2 national items. We have the God Slaying Spear. This was a weapon that we had in the early age as Mekone, and it is a pretty decent little weapon. It only costs you 5 Earth Gems and an Earth 1 Mage to be able to cast or craft. It comes in with 6 piercing magic damage, gives you 2 attack, it's a length 3. Extra effect has Bane of Heresy. If you hit a sacred unit, it gives 15 magic fatigue to that unit. It's armor piercing on that. It only affects gods and sacreds, and its area of effect 1. Now, unfortunately, I don't think I would craft these for my tyrants. They have a length 4 magic weapon already. Maybe if I needed to go after a god specifically. Do note here, there's no resist or anything. So let's say 3 or 4 tyrants going up against a monolith. You could have a couple of them have these just to put the monolith to sleep, since there's no resisting the fatigue. And then maybe your other guys have like shatter hammers or something to try to actually kill the darn thing. But beyond that, I'm not really seeing it, unfortunately. It's a great weapon, just not really useful here. Maybe give one of these to your prophet. This is a single-handed weapon, length 3. So this would allow him to have a length 3 weapon and a shield. So that gives him something there at least. Our second item is the Oppressor Headband. This is only a trinket, so you can get this at Construction 1. It gives you -2 magic resistance, but makes you a Communion Master. Requires an Earth Magic 3 user, so our Cyclops, if they're Earth 2, can do it. 15 Earth Gems. Gives you 6 head protection, that's it. Now, you would mainly use this to get other things into your communions. Let's say you wanted to get a Tyrant into a communion for some reason. You could just put this on him. If you had a summoned mage or a rando mage that you wanted to get into a communion, this is how you could do it. You could get a shaman in for enlarge and personal regeneration. This is how you could do it. Overall, pretty decent. It's a nice item to have. We can craft it natively and we get it super duper early. So if you had something early that you needed to get into a communion, you can definitely do that. Other magic items while we were here, the ubiquitous owl quill, of course, because we have air access. The Dwarven Hammer, of course. We also have Scepter of Authority. This gives you plus 50 leadership and gives you a burn spell. If you're leading somebody around, you just want him to have a bunch more, that could be an option there. Under... Where are you at? Here. We have the Dragon Helmet. This gives morale plus 4 and some extra fire resistance, some dark vision. For people who don't have a helmet, this is a pretty decent helmet, and we have 2 native fire income, so we can craft these pretty easily. 4 morale is nothing to shake a stick at, and some extra fire resistance, especially if we want to do a big like firestorm play or something. That could be relatively useful for a commander. The Crown of Command gives you inspirational plus 1 and extra leadership, extra bodyguards too. This could be pretty interesting for, again, maybe that fire play. We could have 10 of our Gigantes guarding the guy who's going to cast the firestorm, and then they would just keep things busy while they burn up, and this would just make them very likely to stay on field and berserk and whatever. Also good for leading around the slaves, getting them some extra morale. For your thuggy type guys, also consider the Horned Helmet. This gives you an attack at -1 and gives you -1 defense, but it gives you a magic attack headbutt. Well, we have so darn much strength that that's going to be like a 30 damage headbutt or something ridiculous. So that would give us a second attack, which is something we are really lacking on our tyrants. We only have a single spear attack. We kind of rely on magic or fire shield to do most of the killing for us there. Going up a little higher at construction 5, the Flame Helmet gives you fire magic plus 1. So if you need that to cast something, there it is. We have the Helmet of Heroes. This is inspirational plus 2. So again, now we could really be pumping that inspiration for those slave troops. I didn't mention it. Where are you at? Yeah, we also have the Rat's Tail at Greater Magic Item in one-handed weapons. This gives Taskmaster plus 1. So that's a plus 1. If we got them a Helm of Heroes, now we're up to plus 3. And over in miscellaneous items, there is a Horn. Horn of Valor is an additional plus 1. So if you could get all this, and all of that's natively craftable by us. Let me double check that. Yeah, all that's natively craftable by us. So you can really pump that up and make those slave units really hard to get rid of. A plus 4 on top of a plus 4 from our Tyrant already is going to give them like 14 morale for those better troops. So they're not going anywhere anytime soon. That could be pretty potent. Other things to consider, Chthonic Lion Pelt. If you did boost a Smith up to be able to do other nature things, consider this one. 18 invulnerability and 4 HP. For some of our mages, maybe, this would be relatively interesting. Or our giant Cyclops leaders, this could be pretty interesting as a cheap, just give them one thing so they don't die item. Of course, we have the Shambler Skims, which we can natively do, so we can get underwater with those if we so inclined. Back to helmets, though. We also can do... We're not going to be able to natively do the air booster, but you could set yourself up for it or boost the Cyclops to it. The big one is Horror Helm, though. It does require death 2, but we would only need to boost a Cyclops to death 1. So I believe that's 40 death gems, and we do have 1 death income. And then we could craft these for our Tyrants, and this would really make our Tyrant spooky. Having the fear on a very tough, self-buffable, damaging chassis is very, very strong. Very, very strong. I would consider this probably the best helmet for them. Beyond that, we can do winged boots for our Tyrants, get them around really quickly, or we could give them earth boots, or we could give them boots of the messenger for some extra reinvigoration, keep them casting for a long time. So lots of options in the boots. In the random miscellaneous items, I do think Fire in a Jar is relatively interesting. I think that Broth is pretty interesting. We can do nature stuff, so we could do bark skin amulets if you are so inclined. Watch out if you're going to do big firestorm stuff with that. Water breathing, of course. Girdles of Might gets us extra strength, which is whatever, but the reinvigoration is really nice for your mages. We could do Skull Mentors again if we boosted a Cyclops to Death 1, which I think I probably would if I get the Death Gem income to do it. I think these, I wouldn't spend them here though. I would spend them on the Horror Helmets, let's be honest, but it's an option. It's an option. If you had to, if your god was high in nature magic, you could build yourself a cure-all. We don't have any healers or disease healers, and we have some expensive stuff that we would like to not die. Moving on to magic, we have quite a nice little bundle here. Starting in Conjuration, we have 3 national spells. Conjuration 5 gets us Summon Hound of Twilight. This is a Earth 2 Death 1, so we can natively do this, even if it's not on a mage, we'd like to be doing it. For 3 Earth Gems, you get a Hound of the Twilight. We'll look at his chassis here in a minute, and this is actually really useful for us. I'll show you why. We also have Procession of the Underworld. Not something that we're natively going to be able to do easily, but we could random into a Death 2 guy and then make him have a staff. This gets us some Lampads. We'll look at those. And we have Bind Carries at 6. We can natively cast those. Under Construction, at Construction 6, we can do Forge Brass Bowl. And we're actually a nation who, with an Earth Boot, can do this natively. For 25 fire gems, we get the Brass Bowl. Very nice little surprise, I think, for some people. At Enchantment 6, I believe. Yeah. Enchant 6, we get Sow Dragon Teeth. You need an Earth 2 guy. So some of our smaller sages can cast this. It does require an Earth gem, but you get 10 really nice little magic gear wielding magic beings. This can really turn a fight around. Let's say you did 4 casts of this. This is an extra 40 units on the battlefield, and not bad little units. Finally, under Thaumaturgy, at Thaumaturgy 7, it's really high. Under Thaumaturgy 7, we have a very important spell for us. Earth 4, Fire 4 is somewhat hard to do. We're probably going to be looking at a Earth 2 Tyrant that's putting on a Flame Helmet, Earth Boots, and having to boost. I don't know how else we're going to do that easily. That's probably as close as we can get. But for 60 Earth Gems, Gigantomachia. This is a huge spell for us. Recruitment limit in Friendly Domain +1. So now we're getting 5 of our Gigante warriors in our capital and 3 in every other fort. In addition, our Dominion gets a +3 conflict bonus. This is part of the equation when your candle and an enemy candle are pushing against each other. This gives us a +3 to that roll. It is very valuable, especially for us who does not have anything above a priest level 1. It can be a little spooky that you get Dom killed if you're not careful. We have expensive troops and expensive infrastructure. I think somebody could try to do that, especially if they are somebody who has something like Blood Sack and they can push their Dominion really hard and try to kind of focus it in your direction. That's very spooky. In addition, Mekone and Phlegra Giants recruitment cost -10. So I believe that applies to both our leaders and our troops. So that would lower him a little bit, whatever. But that would actually make this guy only 55 gold. That is a big discount on those guys. And I think that would apply to... Yeah, that would apply to our Cyclops too, because it just says giant. So that would make our Cyclops very cheap. I think that would really incentivize me to kind of flood the world with lots and lots of Cyclops. If I could get this up and running. I think this is definitely a goal for your campaign. Luckily, we don't require our god to do it, although we could make a god who could do it relatively easily if we wanted to. We can do it natively. Like I said, Fire Helmet, Earth Boots, and probably need 1 boost here. I mean, you could get lucky and get an Earth 3 Giant, but you're looking at a 25 and then a 10% and then a 25 of that. So very, very tiny chance that actually procs for you. Let's look at those actual units. These are the Greek units. We've looked at them a lot before. The Spartae are what are summoned in by the dragon teeth. Really nice little chassis here. They are magical beings. They are poor amphibians, but they are amphibians. So maybe this is some way that you could get your underwater expansion. A couple water rings, take a tyrant or two, and a couple mages to toss some of these down. They have formation fighter, spirit sight. They don't heal. Doesn't matter because they're a combat summon. They don't eat. Doesn't matter. They're inanimate. They have poison resist and cold resist and pierce resist. Pierce resist is pretty good underwater. Again, another reason that could be interesting. They come in with a magic golden spear and magic gear, gleaming halberd, hoplon, and helmet. Very nice gear here. 19 protection is very solid still. Yeah, these guys are great. You get 10 of them for a single earth gem. I think that's actually pretty decent. You could definitely spam those. Curs, these are interesting. They're fear flying. They have ghost running claws, so they actually do bad things to undead. They are actual demons. They're invisible, so they're hard to hit. We're going to struggle to get a lot of these out. This is famously known for, if you give them Gift of Reason, they have blood magic, so you can break into blood. I don't know. People love to talk about that. I've never seen it actually done. Hound of Twilight. We can natively cast these guys, and I actually like these on this nation way more than on others. 55 HP, 21 strength, 13 attack. That's kind of whatever. They have fear. They're poison resistance. Patrol bonus of 20, though. That gives them 21 patrol strength. So if we summoned in 2 or 3 of these guys, and they're not magic beings, so we could just have a cheap commander lead them, these would make really good patrollers for our capital or anywhere else that we need to patrol. They are not going to have any upkeep because they are summoned in. You could use slaves to do your patrolling. That's really cheap too, but I like the idea of this. That's vaguely interesting. And in a pinch, we could recruit them into our army and send them off to fight. 6 protection isn't the best. They'd love to get a little protection spell on them. They have 3 good attacks, and they're all magic, and I think they're all ghost. Yeah, Stop the Dead. Okay. 2 of them have Stop the Dead, and their tail does a strong poison magic attack. So pretty darn nice, actually. I actually like these guys on this nation. I think it's a good chassis that just never is easy for the Greek nations to summon. So nice to see a use there. Next, we have the Kokatoros. This is the Brass Bull. Size 8 Trampler that also has a Fiery Breath attack, range 6. I think some of these on attack rear would be incredibly hard for people to deal with. They are not undisciplined or anything, so hold attack rear, throw a protection spell on them. That'll get them in the neighborhood of probably 28-ish, so they're going to be incredibly hard to kill. They trample and breathe fire. They have 2 attacks that are both magic, and we can do every type of physical damage in blunt, slashing, and piercing. And we have magic attacks, and we do fire. We come in with slash resist, blunt resist, pierce resist, shock resist, fire resist, cold resist, poison resist. We're a magic being. We're inanimate. We don't eat. We have a HER of 3. We trample. We're mindless. Never heals, and spirit sight. So never heals. We need to take them to a lab, I believe, to actually get them to heal. Amazing unit. Amazing unit. 81 HP with 25 protection, 20 combat speed, okay defense. These are going to be hard to deal with, especially if the enemy's not expecting it. If they're expecting it, you could get some shatter hammers. You could script some shatters. You could probably, it would be rough, but you could do it. But unsuspecting, having both a fire breath and being able to trample in before you start doing that, these guys are absolute killers. And we have the gym income and the pathing to be able to cast them. And we'd like to go down construction anyways. I would love to get one of these out in our stream. That may be one of my goals, because these are so cool, and it's so rare that you're playing somebody who wants to go that deep in construction and has the gems and has the pathing. So another really, really cool one there. Lamp pads, probably not something that you're going to get out, but if you did somehow have a Death 3 guy and spare Death gems that weren't going into helmets, they have 15 invulnerability, recuperation, patrol bonus, spirit sight, and they have Stygian Guide. They wield a Banefire Torch. It's an length 1 AoE 1 decay attack, and you get a few of these each time you summon. On this nation, I don't think that you're going to do this. You're going to get horror helmets with all of your death gems, most likely. Maybe a little death boosting. So, not something we're going to see too much there. Overall, of all the Greek nations, this is one of the few that actually could see use for all of these things. So, that's incredibly cool there. In other magic, this is kind of an interesting one. We need conjuration at least to 3 to get the buffing spells. We are interested in summoning things in, especially we could do some elemental play, but I think Nest of Salamanders is really interesting for us because they're size 1. We can actually have these get into the same square as our Gigante Warriors, who otherwise we need to find something size 2 to help them out with, and we can't do Swarm. So this is one I would love to get this. We have plenty of people who can do Fire 2s. So a Fire 2 mage with a Jar of Fire, round 1 Phoenix Power, round 2 Nest of Salamanders. That puts him at like 50-something fatigue, and then he can just go about his merry day doing whatever else he's going to do. So at least something vaguely interesting there. Going up to Alteration, we're very interested in the self buffs. Very interesting. The normal ones apply, so personal Stone Skin or Iron Skin are all great. Quicken Self for some of our people could be good. Immolation is an interesting one. This is essentially a point blank spell, but for our tyrants, they can get in there and then just do this easily, and they have combat caster, so they'll consider doing this a lot. Mistform, of course, at 4. Temper Flesh. Temper Flesh gives you resistance to slash, blunt, pierce, and gives you some extra fire resistant. This makes your tyrants actual tyrants. Very hard to deal with them if they've got this. Very, very difficult to do that. In addition, we have lots of slaves who would sure appreciate getting some protection from our buffs, and we could do Earth 3 relatively easily, so we could at least get up to group Stone Skin or group Iron Skin. Those are doable. Getting beyond that, we're getting a little harder, although Marble Warriors is doable. We could totally get that, but we're getting relatively high. That's also Phoenix Power and Soul Vortex, so this is a route you could take if you're going to go for heavy thugging. Evocation, we have lots of Fire, Earth, Air, and Water 2s. That means that we can do a lot of these low-end stuff. I think getting probably up to Fireball, if you want to go Evocation, is probably the play. So just go up to Evo 3, and that's probably going to do you for most of the game. If you want to go higher than that, what I think I would be looking for is probably a Firestorm play. We can get Fire 4s natively on some Tyrants, and they could just natively cast Firestorm. Just right out of the box. We need 4 fire gems to do it, but that would be fine. So that's an option if you need some battlefield clear. Construction, as mentioned, we have heavy thugs, so we need construction stuff. Going up to 6 seems very viable to me. We can get a brass bull easily enough. That also would give us Legions of Steel, which is the battlefield-wide protection buff, and we would like to do that. And with a little bit of work, we could get there and cast that. Forge of the Ancients would also be great, but now we're talking like needing to do a god build to make that. In enchantment, I think we can do fire arrow strategies. I think that's totally good. Personal flight for some of our thugs. Fire shield is very important for our thugs. We could do buffs for our archers, our strength buffs for our slaves. All those are pretty good things. Cloud trapeze, we're not going to natively get many. Like we could get some air 2 mages, but not thug mages. So I don't know, that's a little bit limited, but maybe if you could get a air booster helmet, you could cloud trapeze in a tyrant. That would get him up high enough. That's a maybe. Thaumaturgy. Thaumaturgy gets us Battle Fury. Battle Fury is such a good buff. Attack 2, Morale 2. That is so good for us. Either our repellers or our slaves would both appreciate that. In addition, I think the big one here, I mean, there's the larger buffs of those, but we're probably heading to 7 for Gigantomachia. I think that's something we're going to probably want to do. Otherwise, we're just going to get outdone by other people. Slave troops are fine until big battlefield wipes and big AoEs come out, and then what are they going to do? They're just going to die. On the way there, like I said, the attack buff is really the big one. Like, here's the nice 20 plus size, and we can easily cast that with our guys. Even our Fire 2 guys can Phoenix Power and then cast this easily. So we would absolutely love to do this. I think more than almost any other nation. Prisons of Fire it's all right. Again, our normal mages can do that. Yeah, I think that's probably about it from there. And then blood if you do the care thing. Nobody's going to do that. Overall, I think we are a very decent mage nation that has some janky communions that are kind of interesting, and we have those really interesting thug tyrants. Very, very nice there. Speaking of that, let's bring it all together. So we are a nation that declared war on the gods and failed. We have been punished for it, but we're still kicking. We have very, very strong thugs. We have slave recruitment and slave troops that are dirt cheap, absolutely dirt cheap. We'd like to buff them. We would like to get lots and lots of giants who cause some unrest. So we probably are looking at doing some order. Overall, we're not looking at doing a ton of recruiting. We have limited recruitment and they're not that expensive. So we're probably not going to be looking at going for production scales. If I do this here, this is a tyrant and my 4 guys, and I can barely afford it, but I can produce resources with Elder Cyclops. So I don't think we're a sloth nation, but I don't think we're a production nation either. We have good mages, although they're a bit fragile. Something to consider there. We need lots of infrastructure because we need to recruit tons and tons of mages, and every new fort gives us more giant recruitment. I think that's pretty good. I think we're a nation that we peak relatively early. We would sure like to rush somebody down before they get the stuff out that can counter giants or AoE down our slaves. For in-game, that's our biggest weakness, I think. At that point, you're looking at very heavily equipped thugs doing a lot of your work and heavily buffed slave armies doing your other work. We'd like to expand fast, so I think an Awake Expander is the route I would go. We don't have a Sacred, so we don't care about our Bless particularly. We don't even have, this guy's not Sacred, so that doesn't help. We have literally a Priest level 1, and that is it. So if you're going to get a Bless, it's going to be for your god. Otherwise, you're looking at Magic Access, or you're looking at Scales, I believe. Let's take a look at Pretender design. Phlegra is one of those nations that has a pretty darn limited amount. Doubly so because we are giants and we will not be led by wimpy human things. So we have no Dom 1 chassis. So we're looking at Dom 2 and up only. We are from the Greek culture group. So those are the ones we're going to have. We do have access to the Tell King God King. This vaguely opens up a new channel of attack since they auto-cast Foul Vapors. Not something that we're normally going to be able to do. Maybe that could be interesting. We already do crafting things, though. He does bring in sailing, so maybe that could be of vague interest. I'm not a big fan on him here. We have the Elder Cyclops. Again, we can just get Cyclops, so I don't think so here. Productivity scale is increased, but I don't think we need that, so I think that's out. We have some of the reliable ones. We've got the Bulls. Both of those are fine. We have the Draken. I think he can work. Some people swear by the Gorgons. That could definitely work. You can get them high enough. What would that be? 21, 20. If you went hard skin, that'd be 26 protection natively. Get nature 2, so you can do personal regen. Note your HP is a little bit low, so you're going to want to stay in your dominion. But you have the snake hair, which does weak poison, and you have petrification. So that could be an interesting one. Pretty unique, although very pricey at $240 or $290 if you'd prefer the Dominion Immortality version. We, of course, have the Golden Lion. I do like that chassis a lot. We got the Myrmicolian. I like that chassis decently. We have the Earth Serpent. I think he's okay. Maybe I'll also throw in Maneater. But remember, we're not making a bless for anyone else, so all we need is something selfish for our god if we're going to go with an expander route. Moving up to Titans, I'm not the biggest fan of most of these. Great Archon is interesting in that he is an inspiring researcher. That could be pretty good. We have very weak but very efficient researchers with our priests, so this would be an option that would help them out a ton. He also is an alchemist, so we could make some decently efficient gold changes for earth or fire gems. That could be something. Gives us some more magic scale, so again, really focusing on research rush. I'm not sure we can afford to do that, though, because we need to get out there and get lots of infrastructure. We've got the Titan of Foresight, again, another inspiring researcher, although not as good. He does have disease healer, and he is a fortune teller, and has sailing. He increases order limit and productivity. This is vaguely interesting here because remember, we have turmoil limit +1. He would actually bring that back down to 0, so we could take order 2 on our scales. That may have a little bit of value to me. I don't think we have anyone else who does order. No. So maybe one of these guys, just because he could take us to order 2. So I would probably, if I'm going to do him, I would probably bring him at least dormant, maybe even imprisoned. And we are going to go like heavy scales on this guy. Yeah, that's fine. He doesn't really bring any magic here, though. Maybe we imprison him. I don't know what we would do magic-wise, but that would be okay. He comes in, he's just going to be an inspiring researcher, a disease healer, lots of scales. Maybe I could try to wiggle. Maybe we drop this. We could drop this, and we could get some. What we do? I mean, that's gonna help with fire shield. Probably need to break into some earth. In all honesty, I don't know, something like that. Maybe that could work. It could be a thing. Not loving this. Not loving this. Not loving this. Going up to our immobiles now. I'm a little sketchy on immobiles here. Our Dominion is so darn weak. I think having a mobile god is nice on this nation, but you could. Again, we don't need to bless anything. So Sacred Geyser, he's usually used for quickness. That's out the window. Statue of War, I guess that does give you some free troops. Maybe that's interesting. We could go Bronze Colossus. That is a mobile Dom 4 chassis. That could be vaguely interesting. If I was going to go with him, I think at that point, we can't even take him awake, though. So we're looking at a dormant. I think I would go something like that, and we're going hard skin. Yeah. So with hard skin, we're going to look at what? 28, 33 protection, and I did the air specifically so that we can mist form. This guy would be relatively difficult to get rid of. Lots of protection, but I don't know. Does a dormant expander tickle you? Maybe. This does kind of protect you from a year 1 war. We do have some things left, so I'd probably do order, and I'd probably do a little bit of magic. I'd probably do the magic, something like that. There you go. Yep, that's playable. That's totally playable. You want to just do something really different. Statue of Fertility, not feeling it. Oracle, not really feeling it. Let me show you a couple guys that I've already rolled up. You are created. This is Larry the Golden Lion. Very similar to the ones I've shown off before. All we take is Fire 2 and Nature 2. And his buff is just attack skill. You can him and haw that. You could give yourself 1 more morale if you were so inclined, but 30 is plenty. So I went with the attack skill there. He has invulnerability 25, so we don't need any protection. He also is piercing resistant and slashing resistant and has fear. We have a little bit of scales here. He starts as awake. That's the big thing. Gives us the order we want. We're okay with a little bit of heat. He also brings in Magic 2 for helping out the research. The problem with Larry is Larry can't do anything safely until you have personal regen. So you need to get to Enchantment 2 to get personal regen, and Enchantment 3 to get Fire Shield. Once you have those 2, Larry's off and running. You'd be shocked the things that Larry can actually kill by himself. So your general buff is going to be something along the lines of personal regen, Fire Shield, Gift of the Hair, go get him, champ. He's already size 10, so he doesn't need to enlarge. He doesn't have a ton more to do after that, though. And magic weapons are absolutely terrifying. Do not go up against anything that has magic weapons or has a lot of magic damage in general. But he's okay. Like I said, he takes a second to get rolling though, because he really needs to have at least the regen. So if you don't get lucky and you start at enchant 0, we're going to have to spend 3 or 4 rounds recruiting oppressors to research alongside Larry to get him out and running. But at least you have an awake fighter god who's pretty decent. Humans would be better at countering him because they can counter invulnerable better than the computer can. Overall, I think he's all right and has all right scales here. I also made Arnie. Arnie's kind of interesting too. He has ever so slightly worse scales. I think we lost the growth 1. Yeah. And Lenny is 6. Yeah. We lose a scale and we lose a dominion, but we come in with hard skin. So with the hard skin here, he's 18 with the magic, with the earth magic takes him to 21. Hard skin's going to take him to 26. 26 is safe enough for expanding gods. So he doesn't have the problem that Larry has in needing to wait. Now, and he's not relying on invulnerability, so we can buff this higher. If we could get personal stone skin or iron skin, that goes up, and he can do temper flesh. So I actually think that the ceiling for Arnie is higher, but the floor is a little lower. For him, I would probably try to get to Alt 2 so I could do personal stone skin. I may consider Conj 3 for earth power and enchant 3 for fire shield. Fire shield's really going to skyrocket how good he is. So maybe we just still rush fire shield. But I do feel like he could do a turn 2 expand where Larry, unless you get incredibly lucky and all the research goes into enchant, I think that he's probably not going to be able to. The other nice thing about Arnie here is Arnie is Earth 6, so he actually can do some globals or big battlefield magic. We can easily give ourselves Earth 7. So with Earth 7, we could do the big protection blesses, and we can easily do the big temper armor stuff. So I feel like Arnie also can change roles, and he can become a army buffer or magic caster, whereas Larry can't really do that. Larry is just stuck on being kind of an expander and a brawler. We also have Berserker 5 here, so again, this turns into 31 if somebody hits us and we go Berserk. 31, and we're not a construct, so you can't shatter us or anything. We're not a magic being, so you can't celestial opposition us or anything. He's brutal. He's really brutal. I don't know if the AI can come up with something to kill him, and doubly so if we get Temper Flesh. With Temper Flesh, taking half damage from mundane weapons at 31 protection, it's going to take a giant to even think about hurting us. And with the fire shield up, people are going to burn to death around us while we're doing fear to them. All these attacks, and remember that's going to be buffed by 5 more attack and 5 more damage, including a big poison attack. Or no, it's not poison, it's acid attack. So even better because we can damage their armor. This guy's a absolute terror. What's the downside here? Well, he's a pretender god, so you really need to keep him inside your own dominion. So if you're thinking about rushing somebody with him, he can't wear gear, so he's going to be a little bit vulnerable. We have a crown and 2 miscellaneous slots. That's a bit sketchy. We'd like to give ourselves a crown and a bracer of protection at least, and then that way we could temper armor on ourselves. He has Wasteland Survival, Gluttony 25. So we check here. Okay, that tells me the supply usage does not include Gluttony. So he actually eats, 42 supplies by himself. That's a hungry boy. He has Dark Vision 50. This gives us a way to get underground. Super easy. He's bad at smithing, but we're so darn high, we can do whatever we want, basically. He's a Pop Killer 100. It's the price you pay. That's not that bad. Not good at researching, and has Infliction Resistance 1. I think that's coming from our Earth magic. That's not native. So overall, I think this is more interesting than Larry actually for this nation. Gives us a late game of some globals and some big battlefield things where Larry doesn't, and he's a lot sturdier than Larry if we have to fight magic or magic weapons. So I'm kind of leaning for Arnie. Arnie the Antlion, the Myrmicon. I think that'd be pretty interesting. I don't think we've used this chassis before, and I think this is an opportunity to do so. Getting a nice awake guy. I think this is going to be pretty fun. We'll see how horrifically he dies, because that's how my luck usually goes. All right, in conclusion, middle-aged Phlegra, a very cool nation, very flavorful. I think they probably land somewhere in the lower end of the middle of the pack for nations. We don't have super heavy armor. We don't have crossbows. We have okay magic. That's at least something. We have good thugs, but I think with crossbows out on the field, target large enemy monsters is going to absolutely shred Gigante warriors. Like, crossbows are going to mince this poor dude. And ditto with these guys if you don't have giants with them. We have the turmoil problem. We have the unrest problem. I think that's all kind of holding us back. But a very flavorful nation. If you liked just giant nations in general, if you find the human-giant dynamic interesting, if you liked Yomi, this is kind of the closest thing probably to middle-aged Yomi in playstyle. To go that route. Either way, a very fun nation. I really enjoyed all my test games. I knew I would. I think we're going to shoot for trying to get off a lot of their unique stuff in the stream. We're going to try to get Gigantomachia. We're going to try to get a Kolkatoros out. I think both of those would be super duper cool. And maybe we'll use Arnie the Mimikeranon, which will be a chassis that we normally don't use. On Awake Expander, I know people love it when I play those. So that could be pretty cool. All right, give me some tips down below. I didn't get any crazy events, but I swear they should have had a unique event. So if I just, for whatever reason, missed it or was unlucky and didn't see that, let me know what their special event is, because I'm kind of expecting them to have one based on Mekone. Or any other comments below are always appreciated. If for some reason you're not already a member of the channel, I hope this is the video that has earned your subscription. If you'd like to go above and beyond, you could always leave a super thanks, join us on stream for a super chat, or consider becoming a member of the channel. As a member of the channel, you get early access to videos like this, usually a week in advance. In addition, you help support the channel keep it growing. We've had some really good times lately, and I'd like to keep growing the channel. I'm so excited to continue with Dominions and other content. All right, builders, get out there and become a tyrant, apparently, and I'll catch you on stream. Babble out.